I once heard that integrity, a good definition of integrity, is what do you do when you think nobody else is watching? That's your integrity. That's who you are. That's your soul. Integrity.
Originating from deep inside the Rocky Mountains, transported through the power of the internet, and arriving inside your tiny earbuds. It's the Appraiser Coach Podcast.
Minisode.
Welcome back to the program, everybody. Dustin Harris, cruising through the principles of prosperity. We are on to principle number 12. I might remind you that when I first started utilizing the principles of prosperity, and by the way, I did not go to a book for this. I did not go to an article, did not go to a YouTube channel. These were principles that I gathered over time and space and various resources that spoke to me. These are various truths that I felt like successful people utilize. There's a great book out there called The Success Principles by the co-author of the Chicken Soup series, Jack Canfield, one of my favorite books. Great principles. Now, I will have to say this about Jack Canfield. I love the guy, love his book. I don't think everything in that book are principles, because to me, principles are truth that are ever changing, and some of those are just practices. Some of those are just good ideas. And frankly, maybe some of my 16 principles of prosperity are also just good ideas, but they seem to make sense to me, and they seem to be tirelessly never ending, meaning they are timeless. They are timeless and spaceless, meaning a caveman in South Africa could use the same principles, and I think that they would still work, just like someone 100,000 years from now could use the same principles, and they will still work. That's the definition of a principle to me. It's never changing. It is a truth, everlasting. Now, let's get on to principle number 12, but first remind you that we're sponsored by Enow Software. Speaking of principles, I'll tell you what, a principle to use is the principle of technology, and Enow is that practice that utilizes the principle well. Enow allows you to keep track of everything that is happening in your office. Go to anow.com for more information, anow.com. All right, folks, we're going to talk about principle number 12. Principle number 12, by the way, we are 3/4 of the way through the principles. We have 4 more. Principle number 12, integrity will ultimately make or break you. Let me repeat that. Integrity will ultimately make or break you. Now, let me explain what this means. Again, you're never going to go to a book maybe and find this principle. This to me is Dustin Harris's words based on Dustin Harris's study, which means it's probably flawed. But nonetheless, these are the principles that I live by, and these are continually growing, or at least my understanding of them are growing. But I love this principle because, folks, let's just face it. I'm just going to lay it out there. There are temptations out there to cheat. And sometimes cheating in the short run will get you ahead. Sometimes lying, sometimes deceiving, sometimes covering the truth, sometimes telling partial truths will allow you to sleep well at night. But in the end, does it really talk to integrity or to true integrity? Folks, I'm telling you, this is a principle of truth. Now, let's parse it. First of all, what does the word integrity mean, folks? To me, it's about being your true self. I once heard that integrity, a good definition of integrity, is what do you do when you think nobody else is watching? That's your integrity. That's who you are. That's your soul. Integrity will ultimately, now I'm going to come back to that word for just a second, or in just a second. Integrity will ultimately make or break you. The reason I think the word ultimately is so important here is because you can tell me multiple experiences, anecdotal evidences, that if I said to you, integrity will make or break you, you could say, Dustin, you're wrong. Look at this situation. Look at what so-and-so did. He got away with it. She got away with it. She got furthered by it. She was successful because she lied. She was successful because she obfuscated the truth. She was successful because she was not fully disclosing of the situation. I guarantee you can find anecdotal evidences all over the place where people, quote unquote, got ahead because of their lack of integrity, or despite their lack of integrity. But the key here in the principle, and what makes this a true principle, in my mind, is that integrity will ultimately make or break you. I want you to think of all kinds of situations where you have looked up to an individual, you have admired that individual seemed successful, and then the next thing you know, you get an evening news report and that individual is taking that perp walk because the integrity of that person was compromised. Ultimately, folks, this stuff will catch up to you. In other words, could you get ahead on a short term? Probably. Ultimately, integrity will make or break you. I don't want to be over dramatic, folks, but Anow software will make or break your business. I really believe that. Now, will you completely fail if you don't use Anow software? No. But I guarantee, we're talking about the success principles, folks. You will not be as successful as you want to be if you're not using ANOW software in your appraisal business. Trust me on this, folks. I know that sounds super dramatic. Come on, Dustin. Really? Really? Yeah, really, folks. ANOW software will keep track of absolutely every aspect of your appraisal business. It is something you need today, anow.com. And if you use the coupon code podcast30 at checkout, you will get 30% off the first 90 days, first 3 months, folks. Podcast30, PODSAST 30. Welcome back to the program, everybody. Dustin Harris hanging out in the podcast chair, talking about principle number 12 in the principles of prosperity. Integrity will ultimately make or break you. I want to share a brief story before we close up today. When I first started appraising, and by the way, you remember my story, I did not want to go into appraisal. In fact, I did everything I possibly. My biggest barrier to entry in appraisal was not finding a mentor. It was myself, my own mental blockage, my own bias against the appraisal profession. I did not want to become an appraiser. Man, am I super glad that I did. But I, in the beginning, did not want to become an appraiser. I fought against being an appraiser. And finally, I decided I was going to be an appraiser. And within the first 3 months, I was very disillusioned. Now, you got to remember, let me set the stage for just a moment. This was back in 1996. That's when I first started my training process. And it was a very different world back then. I was trained across state border lines. My dad was about 3 hours north of where I was. So we did a lot of telephone conversation, and he trained me over the phone, and he trained me when I was out in the field, but not physically there. And we never merged our businesses, ever. I never worked for my dad. He was kind enough to mentor me and did not ask for much, if anything, in return. And we never mixed our businesses, which meant I had to go out and get my own business. I had to go out and knock doors. Now, he certainly opened some doors for me. I remember the first person, or the first company that I worked for was a mortgage company that my dad was working for in his hometown, but they had a branch office where I was living, and he moved mountains to allow me to start working for them. But in the very beginning, I still remember the name of this mortgage company. They were crooked as crooked could be, folks. And I'm telling you, they pushed value like you can't believe. And they said things that would get them in a lot of trouble. This was pre-Dodd-Frank, pre-HVCC, but nonetheless, I mean, in the first couple of months, I remember having this conflict with me, and I thought, you know what, if I will just cheat, if I will just compromise my integrity a little, I will probably be very successful. If I can just fudge these numbers and make these numbers work, they are going to love me. I'm going to be their prima donna. I am going to be their go-to person. And then I realized what I was thinking about. And I realized that my integrity, in fact, I remember saying to my wife, babe, if this is what appraisal is and I have to play this game, I'm going to do something else. And she said to me, Dustin, remember who you are and be the type of person that you know you should be. And that's what I've tried to do for the last 25 years. And guess what, folks? Have I lost business over the years because of it? Absolutely. Have I had clients go the opposite direction? Absolutely. I remember one of my big clients pulling me in one day. In fact, I went to see them because they stopped sending me work. And I remember them saying to me, Dustin, you're too conservative in your numbers. If you will meet what we need, we'll use you more. Guess what? I've never done another appraisal for them since. That's what integrity looks like, folks. Integrity will ultimately make or break you. You're going to have some challenges if you have integrity along the way, but in the end, it will make or break you depending on how you utilize it.
You've been listening to the Appraiser Coach podcast with Dustin Harris. If you like what you hear, please give us a 5-star rating and post a short review on iTunes. For more in-depth insider information on how you can make more money as a real estate appraiser, visit theappraisercoach.com and sign up for the All-Star team today. Thanks for joining us. And now, get out there and create some value.